still a relatively small-scale process per se, but it's already being used. So there are the first couple of projects. As I said, Microsoft spent a couple of $1 million investing in that type of methodology. That should showcase the range of processes that we are working with. As you can see, that with all of those, we are focusing on some sort of technological or industrial processes. And that is simply due to us. We're not saying that nature-based solutions are not good, so planting trees is absolutely good. You should prevent deforestation, you should plant trees, you should use as much renewable energy as possible. That's very, you can do one thing without leaving the other. But we just want to measure things. So we want to make sure that we have a data input, a data output, and that just happens with technology. It's just a lot easier with technology compared to nature. That is an example of our latest methodology. It's called enhanced rock weathering. It's the most exotic one from now, and what we're doing is basically do something that would have happened either way, but would have happened throughout the timeline of millions of years, and we're doing it in 2 to 3 years. So what happens is you take basalt, crush that basalt, and basalt reacts with water. As soon as it's hit by water, it takes two carbon dioxide atoms into it, it mineralizes, and then stays also stable for thousands of years. And if you have a relatively low surface that doesn't really work quickly, and we just crush the rock, so we basically make a powder out of that, then it's being spread on the fields. It serves as a mineral fertilizer in a way. It helps increase soil quality, it helps increase yields. And the interesting part is that once it's done its job, it's being flushed into the groundwaters, into the rivers, and from the rivers into the oceans. And it's a basic material compared to acidic one, which means that it also helps fight oceanic acidification. And also, that is another project that Microsoft supported. Just like 2 weeks ago, did Microsoft acquire corks from that. That's the buzzword. What is a cork? And that is our definition of a carbon credit. The cork is a CO2 removal certificate, and that is where we show what it is that we are actually doing. We are the standard that writes those methodologies that I've just shown. We also provide a registry, just like Verra, Gold Standard, those of you that know those existing carbon crediting schemes, to make it transparent, to make it traceable, to make everyone understand what it is that actually happened there. And the big difference is that we are just focusing on durable carbon, which means anything we are certifying has at least a contracted guarantee of 100 years, and which we think is revolutionary. That's why we put it there. And also, obviously, 1 ton of carbon removed is always just removal. So all the emissions caused throughout the entire process will be subtracted, and there are no avoided emissions being accounted for. SBTi has been named quite a lot. That's why it's great for me to quickly just mention that. The interesting part is that we've mentioned lots of SBTi targets, so 2030, 2040, I think 2050, we've had all of those figures today. But the question is, what happens then? So what happens when you've reduced all your emissions? Nobody will produce 0 emissions. It's simply not, I mean, if we stop doing what we're doing, but that's not going to happen. So the question is, what do we do with those residual bits in the very end? And those are the ones that we believe in need to be stored not just for 10 years, not just for 15 years, but for hundreds or better thousands of years. And that's why we think a cork should be used more openly, more frequently. And the tricky part now is, if you take a look at the next slide, how many companies already have SBTi goals? I just took that last week, so they said it's 25% of companies from the global Fortune 500 list already have an SBTi commitment. So all those 25% of the largest companies on Earth do have an SBTi goal. What happens if all of them, all of a sudden, by 2030 say, okay, now give me millions of tons of durable carbon removal? That's going to be a problem, because then it's not there. Because as I've explained earlier, it's pretty expensive to do those things. So we need scaling, we need supporters, we need investment and liquidity in the market to support those net negative projects that are yet still relatively early in the phases. Nevertheless, and that is then already my last slide, there are a couple of companies already supporting that. I've mentioned Microsoft a couple of times, but we have strong supporters from Boston Consulting, from Ernst & Young, Goldman Sachs, BlackRock. There are already multiple very, very large corporates that support the projects that we're having. We organize on-site visits, and once more, we are not the projects, we're not the ones selling it, we are just trying to provide a stage and a platform for those projects to be seen and to be believed in. So we want to provide credibility, transparency, and long-term permanence. And this is one of the solutions as we think how we can help do our bit in fighting the climate crisis. Thank you. Grazie mille.